Welcome to my very first mid-year book tag. I cannot believe it's already July. I have been watching these mid-year book tags from so many creators across several years, so I'm so excited to finally contribute my own. I've got a great list of questions that I've accumulated across different creators, as well as just other questions I wanted to share about, so let's dive right into them. Hopefully this will give you a great overview of how my reading year is going so far, what I like to read, and how the rest of my year is hopefully going to look. Question 1. Favorite book of the year so far? I have both a fantasy answer and a romance answer, which I will have for many of these questions. For fantasy, it is without a doubt Bookshops and Bone Dust. I'm learning that I really love cozy fantasy. I love low stakes. I love magical creatures just living their ordinary lives, but adding a bit of magic into their everyday. This one in particular, I love the ideas of friendship and that who we are right now doesn't necessarily mean that we're always going to be that person, and that some stories have their endings so that we can move on to the next book. For romance, that is You with the View. This was my very first 5-star of the year. Two former high school enemies must reunite for a road trip inspired by their grandparents' broken engagement in this electric debut romance. I found that I related to both of these main characters and their story in a way that I just hadn't in a contemporary romance in a while. I love their chemistry, I loved their banter, I loved how intelligent each of them were and how they one-upped each other the whole time, and they have been for years. I am such a sucker for people that have known each other for years and years and have been these rivals in that time until finally they realize that they don't have to be rivals anymore, I can just be in love. This is also potentially my first contemporary romance in which they're out on a road trip, which is something I do all the time. So being out on the road, seeing new adventures, experiencing fun adventures along the way, that's just something I don't typically read about in romance novels, and it's something that I desperately crave. For worst book of the year, I also have a fantasy and romance. For fantasy, it is The King of Elfland's Daughter. This is one of the fantasies that is basically a pillar to the entire genre. It predates The Lord of the Rings, predates everything else you can possibly think of, and I am upset with how much I hated it. I hated the characters, I hated the plot. I can see where the pillars of fantasy stemmed from this novel, but unfortunately a lot of the things that I hate about fantasy, particularly fantasy written by men, are very, very present in this book. In romance, that would be Alive and Wells. This is part of my cowboy romance journey that I am thankfully taking a large step away from because of books like this. There are a lot of trappings in this microgenre, particularly the really absurdly misogynist main male character who doesn't really believe women can do anything, and a female character that will just bend over backwards to appease him, even as she is actively running away from an abusive ex. For best sequel, I actually have two romances. Swift and Saddle is indeed another cowboy romance, but I love this one in particular because I could relate to this female main character more than 99% of other characters that I've ever read about. This is a very gentle love story in which they have immediate chemistry, and due to the fact that they then become boss and employee, they push things aside, but he is willing to wait for her and work for her and help her realize that she can be comfortable with another man in her life after being betrayed in the past. He allows her to be safe with him, he allows her to be free with him, and he understands her need to run and be on her own. I love that he allowed her the space to grow as a person, an individual, for her own good, for her own artistic ability, her own intellectual ability, build her own business, and kind of be out in the world as she wants to be, but also keep holding a safe space for her at home. The second is Beg, Borrow, Steal. It is one of my very few 5 stars of the year. I gave the first and third book in that series 5 stars and the second book a 4.5, so that series just has blown me out of the water, but I loved how hard I laughed, how hard I rooted for the characters, how much I loved each of them individually, how much the town just keeps growing and growing more involved, and their characters are just so good. The series is spectacular. For worst series, on the romance side, I have Burn the Wild. These were already pretty outlandish cowboy romances, but I liked them because they were so outlandish that I thought they were fun, but this third one just took things a bit too far for me. It was traumatic in a way that it shouldn't have been for the main characters, and there were just certain logistical, like basic common sense things that happened in the book that were catalysts for problems between the characters that just pissed me off. And for fantasy, this is YA fantasy. This is the third book in the Luminary series called The Whispering Night. This one let me down so much. For the first 2 books, I was thrilled. I was like, oh my god, this is going to be the next YA fantasy I'm going to refer to everyone to read. I was so pumped up. I thought it was so unique. It was Divergent meets Monster Hunters with an actual really cool young main character who really has her head on her shoulders and a really awesome side love interest, and then then a great best friend character who has her own story going on. All three of them had really, really strong plots they had going for themselves, and when they were together, they were just having so much fun and great adventures, and they were, you know, they were doing better than the adults in her community. It was just setting up to be such a great trilogy. And then I got this third book, and it basically just went downhill so fast. It fell into every single pit about YA fantasy and YA books that I hate in general. They became very shallow, very surface level interested in the events going on around them. Like, there are literally people dying, clues to solve, mysteries to solve, like things to get done, and they're thinking about this ball that's going to happen. And the big ending solution to everything, all these problems, is just friendship. Like that, oh, I can't even, that pissed me off so much. So badly, to the fact that it is now in the pile of books that I am selling. New release that you haven't read yet but you want to. Everything this year that's come out. Hold on, I have two in particular though. Number one, I can't believe I haven't read it yet. I want to so badly. My cousin has been on me about it. But the funny thing is, I haven't even read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes either. I really want to reread the trilogy before I get into the other two, and I just have not had the time or the space to read 5 books in a series right now. But if I don't read this in this year, so help me, my cousin will murder me. You'll get no more videos from me. And second, The Night and the Moth. I've heard nothing but good things. I freaking loved Rachel Gillig's first duology. I'm unfathomably excited for this one. It's beautiful. It's got everything I want in a book. I need to read it. My most anticipated release of the second half of the year, I have quite a few on my radar, but if I had to pick the one that I am most excited for, it's gonna be Alchemized. I have been a Hermione girly for about a decade now, and so having read Manacled for the first time in 2020, I think it was, I haven't read it since then because I was so traumatized. Then my cousin read it a few years ago and I kind of relived it through her, and so I really want to reread Manacled and then read Alchemized. I have, I think, 2 editions coming for me in the mail. I'm so excited. This book is just, I know it's gonna blow me out of the water. Senlin Yu is just one of the best writers I have ever read. I've read every single fic that she has ever put out, and that woman can write. So if I had to pick one for the rest of the year, even though I have so many on my radar, Alchemized is going to be the top for me. I'm playing with the idea of doing a reading vlog of both Manacled and Alchemized and having them be spoilery so that I can talk in detail about both of them. Let me know if that's something you would be interested in reading, and if I should tag along Rose in Chains and The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy as well to that. Series I want to finish. If you've seen my video about the series I'm currently reading, I'm currently in the middle of like 65 series or something absurd like that. So I have quite a few on the radar, but if I had to pick a few that I can immediately finish, hopefully within 2025, I definitely want to finish Tomes and Tea series. I think the 4th book is about to come out in July, so I can get up to date on that. I'd love to finish the Ascendant series, which is that YA fantasy series that I am just eating up so much. I love that series, and I've never heard anybody talk about it before. And I'd love to finish the Gale Song series, which is a very bloody, political, Irish-inspired fantasy series, and is unlike pretty much anything else that I read, but I read that thing months ago and I still think about it constantly. Like, I want to read it, but I think they need to be spaced out. Not enough that I can't remember anything, but enough that like the blood and gore can be filled with my cozy fantasy and my romance and romantasy. And on top of that, the series I want to start even more than the ones I'm currently reading. I have the worst habit, obviously, of starting series and then very slowly getting through them, but the top 3 that I so desperately want to read this year that I've never read before are these 3, and they are all on my 25 and 25. And one of them is going to a convention I'm going to next year, so I need to, at the very least, start The Cruel Prince. But I love, love, love to read Shadow and Bone and the Six of Crows duology and From Blood and Ash series. I would love to get through these. I feel like I missed that part of book talk in the online world, and I need to catch up. For my biggest surprise of the year are going to be 2 of the very few 5 stars that I've had so far this year. I picked them both up, not thinking anything of either of them, and they both ended up being 5 stars. The first is Love from Scratch. I found this at a Second and Charles in Colorado. We were just going through, it was one of like 30 books that I got from there, all used. This was just in the YA section. I thought it sounded fun and cute, and then I read it in like 2 days. I finished finished it on the plane, and I was just sitting there like giggling, kicking my feet like on the plane ride, and I was like, I need more, I need more. Like, I don't know what it is about this book, but I loved it. Normally YA romances like don't rank very highly for me because their problems just feel so juvenile, and obviously their reactions and how they respond to the problems are very juvenile because of course it's YA fiction. But this one in particular, I just love. These two are working at the Food Network, and they're both interns, and they end up almost becoming the face of the company as they start making this new series together, all by accident. And these two ended up being shipped by the whole internet, and so she's dealing with internet fame that like throws her back to some really bad times in high school, and he is over here just like fawning after her, going after her, and he's being so cute, but he's like a total dude bro, but he actually has like thoughts and feelings. These two are actually so funny together. I was not this witty when I was a teenager. Like, I'm barely that witty now at 27, like probably wittier than I am right now. Their banter is hilarious. It's obviously all very clean because it's YA, but it's just like over months of them getting to know each other across a whole summer, but at the same time they're also competing for the one and only fall internship spot that they both really desperately want. And so it's like he just really wants to be with her, and she's like, no, back off, we're gonna be enemies at the end of this. He's like, no, we're not, I like you. And it's so cute. I had the best time. And then for fantasy, this is The Phoenix Keeper. It is one of my Illumicrate books, and I read it for Pride Month because it is kind of sold as a sapphic cozy fantasy that takes place in a magical zoo, but it really isn't that. I think it was marketed incorrectly. This is really about a woman who's trying to get over her social anxiety and save the phoenixes, which is a species that she loves so much, but they are critically endangered and people are like stealing them off the black market, and so she just wants to save her species. And so this is really her story as she is kind of dealing with boys and girls, and she's trying to just like talk to the press, and she's trying to like talk, you know, do her zookeeper talks for her magic birds. So a lot of this is just her trying to get through the world as a highly socially anxious person. I am a big fan of description heavy magical worlds, and so her going through and describing every single bird and their magical elements within each of the enclosures at the zoo, like learning about their daily schedules, learning about, you know, how this one bird just keeps digging into a hole, how this bird keeps stealing keys. Like, I thrived in this kind of setting and I really loved it. I love the main character, although she did get on my nerves because of her social anxiety sometimes. It just really put me in the shoes of what it's like to be such a socially anxious person to the point where you can't even function. And then her personal growth throughout the story is so heartwarming to the point where the last 100 pages where pretty much all of the action actually lies, we get to this point in which everything just feels so well earned, because this book takes place over at least a year, if not two. It is a lot happening in this book at a very slow, descriptive, really lovely pace, in which at the end you just feel so heartwarmed by her love story and her confidence in herself, and everything just feels so perfectly earned. Your new favorite author, either debut or new to you. For romance, it has to be Sarah Adams. I listened to all 3 of her books in the When in Rome series all in one day. All 3 of them. 2 of them I even stayed up late into the night just lying down, headphones on, just listening to them because I physically could not go to sleep to finish them. I stayed up till like 2 a.m. both times. I don't think I've ever laughed out loud or shipped the couples so much in any contemporary romance pretty much ever, and she hit it out of the park with all 3 of them. This first one is a 5 stars, the second one is 4.5 stars. My only complaint about that is I think he just completely 180'd his personality to appease her, but otherwise it was perfect. And then the last one I also gave 5 stars, which was my favorite out of the 3. I have already put her into my spreadsheet and I'm gonna go back and read her entire backlist. And second, S.A. McLean. I just love the way she wrote her details and how deep she went into her characters. I would love to read any other magical stories she puts out. I'm not entirely sure if she has other books out or if this is her one and only. I'm gonna have to look into her. I finished this pretty recently, but I am craving her type of writing. For a book that made you cry, I cry very, very rarely in books. Like, obviously I feel sad, but very rarely to the point where tears are actually coming down my face. So I think there's only been one actual book that had tears down my face, and that is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. Reading her memoir in Sexual Assault Prevention and Awareness Month just hit me so hard. It was really, really painful to get through, but I highly recommend reading it. But in the fantasy world, I didn't actually cry, but there were tears in my eyeballs that didn't spill out when I was at the end of Bookshops and Bone Dust. The end sentiment of just knowing that everything is right for a time and that some stories have endings that you can move on to the next ones hit me so hard unexpectedly in this book, to the point where I just like sat there staring at the wall for so long afterwards, like thinking about all of the chapters in my own life that had to end so that I could enter the new chapters, especially recently. Books that made you happy, quite a lot of them actually this year. I'm having a really good time. My average rating for books is already way higher than it was last year, but if I had to pick books that just like actively made me embody very happy, I hate to pull these two back out, but I'm going to. This one and the whole series, because they just made me literally laugh out loud so much. I was giggling like crazy, so like I was having like an out-of-body happy experience with these. And then You with the View, because I was thriving in the road trip rivals to lovers kind of trope that I was just like, everything I love and more is in this book. I'm having the best time. The most beautiful book you got this year. I have a few examples for this, but I'm actually going to make a whole video on the prettiest books that I own. So I'm only gonna show two right here, and then I have a ton for that video. And I hate to keep showing this, but I did buy both of these this year. I went into Barnes & Noble and bought them. Some of the other books I had in mind for this were special editions that came in the mail or otherwise, but these I just went and I bought them because I wanted these in particular. Yes, I love the covers. Yes, I really like the edges, but what I love about these books are the end paper art. These are exactly my favorite kind of end papers. Really beautifully done landscapes with little details in here that hint at the story, and characters in their scenes that just pull out all the emotions. I lied, I'll show you one more. I got this edition of Wings of Starlight when I was in the UK this year, and oh, I love the British edition of this. What are all of your 5-star reads this year? The funny thing about this is that I have 5 of them, but all of them have been in May and June. I made it January, February, March, and April with not a single 5-star. I thought I was broken. I thought something was wrong with me. And then I read You with the View, which was my first book in May. And I was like, you know what? No, there's nothing wrong with me. I was just waiting for these books. And now in the past 2 months, I have 5. So the first one is You with the View. The second was When in Rome. The third was Love from Scratch. The fourth was Beg, Borrow, or Steal. And the fifth and most recent was The Phoenix Keeper, a book I enjoyed with mixed ratings. I'm gonna bring out Swift and Saddled again because this is by far my favorite out of the entire Rebel Blue Ranch series. So when I connected with most, the characters that I love most in the series. And the funny thing is, it is everyone else's least favorite. It is the lowest rating. I'll see people talking about this series and they're all being like, yeah, I wish I could just skip this book. Meanwhile, I'm over here being like, no, this one's by far my favorite. And The Phoenix Keeper. I rated this one 5 stars. It has, I think, a 3.8 average on Goodreads. A lot of people DNF'd it or gave it pretty low ratings because they thought the plot was too meandering, the description was too dense, that the sapphic love story took too much of a backseat, that they all hated the main character, which are all completely valid criticisms. This is just my kind of book. And now all the rest of these questions are about my TBR updates, my challenge updates. So my update on my priority TBR, halfway through the year, I've gone through exactly 4 of the 25 books I have on this priority TBR. The likelihood of me getting to all of them is very, very low. There's some books on here that I just don't really want to read anymore. So I think that if I don't get to them by the end of the year, I might unhaul them. Likely not. I'll probably keep them around. My update on my priority rereads. I picked out 52 books that I would love to reread this year. Obviously that is way too many, but I love to reread books. I think I've reread maybe 2 or 3 books so far this year. So out of the 52, I've done 0. Absolutely none have been reread. Starting in April, I started posting on my Instagram little grids of all of the monthly releases that I was very much looking forward to reading. And so out of April, May, and June new releases that I put out into the world that I wanted to read, I have read 2 out of the 36. I would love to get to all of them, but oh my god, there are too many books out there. Now on my seasonal TBR, I made a spring recommendations video and a summer recommendations video in which half of it is recommendations and half of it was TBR books that I wanted to get through. In the spring video, I gave a ton of books that I'd already read, but I listed 12 that I wanted to read that spring, and I read none of them. Oh, I really want to though. And then in my summer recommendations video, I didn't count how many I recommended, but I've gotten to none of them because I just made that TBR kind of recently. So I'm not counting that, I'm not counting that, but so far, still 0. Sorry, I've got clouds coming in and out and it's bothering me so much. This lighting is very difficult. And now for my actual physical TBR challenge update. At the end of my big haul and then unhaul and bookshelves refresh and everything, I now currently own 746 books. 215 of those are read, which leaves me with 531 that are unread. I love seeing those videos on TikTok where they're like, oh my god, I have to do a spinning wheel for my absolutely massive physical TBR, all 26 of them, and I'm sitting over here like, ah! I would get shamed if I put this number out on TikTok, so I'm not doing that. This is staying right here on YouTube. Anyway, 531 unread books out of 746 equals 28.8% books read owned, which is very good when you compare that to what it was last year or even the beginning of this year. So I'm thrilled by that number, but my goal for 2025 is to get up to 35%, which feels ambitious to me because right now I need to read 46 books without acquiring any more, and that's just not gonna happen because I have my book convention is in August, so I'm going to get books from, and I have other pre-orders on the way, and of course I'm gonna go to little free libraries, I'm gonna get books there, and sometimes I'll go book shopping and I'm gonna get books, which means I need 46 books plus however many books I acquire. Let's say I acquire 50 books by the end of the year, that means I need to read 96 books. So 35% is still ambitious for me, but I want it so badly. And then something fun that I do every 3 months in my reading spreadsheet is I go through and I figure out my read percentages by genre, because some genres are really pulling me down and others I'm doing quite well on. And so I love to see how these change over time. So as of this quarter, as of July 1st, 2025, out of my nonfiction books, I've read 0 out of 10. And that number unfortunately got worse, so that's why there's a red highlighted portion on the right, because I unhauled the one book I had read. Memoir and biography, staying solid at 0 out of 3 read. Poetry, I actually got better because I unhauled some of the ones I didn't read. So I've read 50% of those. Writing, I've read 1 of the 5, and that got worse because I unhauled one of the ones I had read. Oh my god, I'm actually just realizing that that percentage is wrong. I'm changing it right now on my phone. That's actually up to 20% because I can do math, which means I actually got better at this because I unhauled one of the books that I didn't read. Wow, okay, so that one's green, yay! So the only one that went down is nonfiction. Wow, I'm thrilled by this news. Travel and photography, I've only read 2 out of the 44. Fairy tales and mythology, I've only read 11 out of 67. But in this one, I'm also including like those gigantic books that have a million myths in them. So like those are hard to get through. For fantasy, I did read more of my fantasy books. I used to be at 33%, now I'm at 34%, which is honestly really good because I've acquired a lot of fantasy books. Science fiction, still haven't read either of the 2 books I own. For fiction, I'm staying strong at 2 out of 18, and that is because I unhauled like 15 of these books that I did not read. For romance, it is probably my strongest physical TBR rating because out of the 64 that I own, I have read 31 of them. That's huge. Historical romance is one of the ones that's pulling me down because usually once I've read the book, I unhaul it. So I am holding on to 105 of these and only 6 of them I've read. My YA section, I did improve on this because I got rid of a ton. So I have read 50%, 17 out of 34. That is really good. And that's usually because the ones that I have read are ones that I love so deeply and they're part of my childhood and I reread them for nostalgia purposes and I'll never let go of them. For YA fantasy, I'm almost at 40%, which is pretty dang good considering I own 109 of these. I unhauled quite a few of them, which is why that percentage went way up from 35%. That's actually not that big of a difference. For classics, I've read 50% of the 34 I own, but to be honest, most of those I read in college. So that's why that percentage is so high. Mystery and thriller, I'm just not that big of a reader, so I'm staying steady at 0% there. But as of last quarter, I was at 25.06% books owned, and now I'm at 28.82. So I am moving up in the world. You see all those greens right there, and now 1 less red? I'm thrilled. And the last two quarterly updates I want to show you are going to be on my laptop. I want to show you my reading challenges update, like my halfway through the year, and my read the world challenge update. Okay, so we are in my spreadsheet now, and here is what 2025 is looking like so far. I've read quite a few books. I'm up to 78. Woo! So 77 in the first half of the year. We are pretty much all filled out. And then over here, this is how we're doing so far. I read a crap ton in June. Everything is looking nice and fun. We have reached more than half into audio. We're at 52.6% in the audio, but still staying strong with fantasy as my most, followed by romance. We are doing quite well on everything else. Okay, so I wanted to show you my challenges and how we're doing so far in 2025. I think I'm doing so much better this year at these challenges than I did last year. For every letter book challenge, so far I'm just missing an E, a Q, a V, an X, and a Z, which isn't that bad at all. And for every letter challenge, author last name, I'm missing an I, a K, an O, a Q, a U, an X, and a Z. And so at this point, I'm gonna keep going through these pretty organically, and maybe in the last like month or two is when I will specifically seek out a book that starts with E. But right now, I'm pretty happy with how I'm doing this organically. Read a book from an author from 15 different countries. I'm doing so well for this. I'm thrilled. I have the USA, UK, Netherlands, Ireland, Grenada, Guam, Panama, South Korea, and I have more on the way. So far I'm at 8, which is more than half. I'm very happy with halfway through the year, more than halfway through that. Read a book from every continent. Right now I'm only missing South America, and I actually just finished a book from there. So this is complete. Read the Rainbow is complete, and most of them are pretty highly rated. I am certain I will read books that take place in the fall, so I am thrilled with how this page is turning out. And now for my Read the World spreadsheet, I'm doing so well for both of them. I'm really happy. Look how filled in these are. I have done 35 of the states, which means I'm 70% of the way into the states. I'm so happy. And I love how dark this is getting too, because when I find a book that I like better, I replace it. And so I want this to all be completely dark green one day. That'd be fantastic. And then over here for the Read the World, considering at the end of the year I had like 6 countries in here or something like that, I'm now at 16, which means I'm almost 7% of the way into the world. I'm thrilled with that. Look at all the color. And then let's go down to the continent pages. Alrighty, we are in all of the continents. I love it. I love it. Europe especially is super filled in. Got a little bit of everything. I will have a South American book in there very soon. I'm thrilled with how I have color on all of these. They are starting to fill in. This is obviously going to be a long challenge that I'm going through, averaging 1 a month, sometimes 2. So the fact that at this point we are into 16 countries, I'm so happy I'm doing this. It is making me so happy just reading about people all over the states and all over the world. And that is going to end my very first mid-year tag. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a great second half of your year. If you do this tag, please let me know. I would love to hear about how your first half of the year is going and how you hope your second half will go. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.